I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. Abraham Lincoln. Thomas Lincoln and his wife Nancy Hanks Lincoln had been married for almost 3 years when their second child, a son they named Abraham, was born near dawn on February 12, 1809. Nancy had sent Tom to fetch a midwife because her time was approaching. Neighbor Peggy Walters went to wait with Nancy while Tom was on his errand. Although only 20 years old, Walters had assisted her mother in delivering other babies in the community. Hodgenville, Kentucky, was a frontier community where childbirth was a matter for the women to handle. Walters would recall years later that the Lincolns, like the others in their community, were poor but didn't lack what they needed, and that Nancy had a good feather bed beneath her and enough blankets. In recalling the birth, Walters remembered that Tom had been solicitous of Nancy and that the wife was glad that she'd had a son. Future years would not offer cause to look back upon many such episodes of domestic affection in the Lincoln household. The Lincolns would not have an easy life, and while young Abraham knew hardship from the time of his birth, his knowledge of life came from the experience that had more in common with the America that he would govern than a gilded existence that other power brokers might have known. The Lincoln family. Tom Lincoln was born in Virginia in either 1776 or 1778. His family moved to Kentucky not long after, where his father Abraham owned over 5,000 acres of rich Kentucky land. In 1786, while they were planting corn, an Indian attack killed Abraham. An older son, Mordecai, saved Thomas before an Indian could kill him. Thomas survived, but because his father died without leaving a will, the land went to his older brother, and Thomas was left to earn a living through labor as a farmer and carpenter. There was little opportunity for an education, but he was willing to work hard. He bought a farm in 1802 and married Nancy Hawkins in 1806. When Abraham, named for Tom's father, was born in 1809, he was born on the new farm that Tom had purchased. Records show that Tom Lincoln was a wage earner who was respected in his community. Yet his hard work and savings failed to lead to prosperity, as Kentucky's land title system was inconsistent, and Tom could not claim the title to the farms that he had purchased. Too often, he had to sell the land for less than he'd paid for it. Fed up with the lack of opportunity, and also opposed to slavery which was legal in Kentucky, the Lincolns moved to Indiana. Abraham Lincoln recalled life in Perry County, which had an average of 3 people per square mile, as a fight with trees and logs and grubs. The land was a challenge for farmers, and Tom depended on hunting to feed his family. Their one-room cabin had no flooring and minimal furniture. The corn husk beds upon which they slept were a favorite home for rodents and bugs. Nancy Hanks Lincoln, unlike her husband, stressed the value of education, and when a school was started 9 miles from their cabin, she insisted that the Lincoln children would attend, no matter what Tom thought. Although the school didn't last, the 2 children attended while it was open, walking anywhere between 2 to 3 hours each way just for the opportunity. A new mother for the Lincoln children. The family lost Nancy in 1818 when she died from eating contaminated milk taken from cows that had eaten poisonous white snake root. With young children to raise, Tom Lincoln couldn't stay a widower for long. He left 11-year-old Sally and 9-year-old Abraham to manage for themselves while he returned to Kentucky to find a wife. Tom was gone about 6 months, leaving the children with very little to eat. A neighbor who checked on them noted that the Lincolns were thin and filthy and that the cabin was dirty. When Tom returned in a horse-drawn wagon, he brought a widow named Sarah Bush Johnston to join the Lincoln household as his wife and stepmother to his daughter Sally and his son Abraham. Sarah brought 3 children to the household, and Nancy Hanks' cousin Dennis Hanks also lived with them. Sarah and her stepson were immediately fond of each other. She was a loving person who was affectionate with both her own children and her stepchildren. She couldn't read, but her new husband had told her about his son's interest in books, and when she came to Indiana, she brought 6 books for him. She also encouraged the children to attend school. One, which lasted only 3 months, had opened up a mile away. Lincoln's total time of formal schooling lasted less than 18 months, but the fact that he had even that much is due to the women who mothered him. The new Mrs. Lincoln was also a tidy and orderly housekeeper. The cabin eventually grew to have a wooden floor, as well as a door and a window.